Alright folk, how you doing? Scotty, independent Scotland, how it should be. As you know, I'm a strong and ardent supporter of the free market economy. I feel disheartened at the fact that there's so many people in my country have fallen for the trap of socialism. People in my country deserve better. Many people support what they do because of their perception of history that leads them on the path of supporting the mixed economy or either Marxism. My friend here, Keyrin, has put forward for the Scottish Libertarians the only real path towards a true independent Scotland, a Scotland that would prosper. I wish more people would take eyes to them. My perspective on supporting the British Union would take the position of defending the British Union because of the current state of affairs, unfortunately as it is. If Scotland was to separate, I would love to see Scotland doing away with the central bank, moving towards free market money, even if it would go over a gradual period of time, to move towards something of true free market money, to free up the economy, to deregulate, because it's a myth on the banking crisis. I've covered that in my videos. You can check that out for yourself. You deserve a better economy, you deserve better life. You do not deserve what you're seeing today with the current financial crisis. And the only way that you can achieve that is through a free market economy and not through this current system today where you see over-regulating the private sector and strangling capitalism half to death in a mixed economy. And many people falsely believe that it's capitalism that leads to the monopoly creation or oligopolistic creation or even cartels. As I've covered in my previous videos, it's not capitalism that leads to that problem, and that's a very serious issue. Anyway folk, here I have is my two friends. I just so happened to come across through my own channel, and I hope you enjoy, of course, their own perception on things. My friend Cameron, who I first came across, why he came across Libertarianism. What was it that drew you? Because I know you came across my channel, but what was it that drew you towards the arguments on from what I had made?
Well, obviously, and thank you very much for having me on your video, Scott. First and foremost, obviously, I think it's quite important that we realise the sort of perception that people are drawn towards with the media when it comes to the economic argument of putting faith in government. A lot of people are drawn to the government through the influence of, what the media portray the government to be. When it comes to obviously left-wing government in particular, they portray themselves to be serving the people, but at the same time they're very much authoritarian, they're very much nationalist. When I came across your channel in particular, you were arguing on the basis of industries that were more sort of privately owned, that were free from government intervention. When I sort of saw the contradiction from those who supported big government, I realised that they weren't for the people, they were for basically controlling society, they were for controlling industries, and that's why I've came to the conclusion that I believe that a free market, libertarianism, people's freedom of not only freedom to do what they wish, but freedom of speech, and that is really why I came to the conclusion that I'm somebody that supports the free market and somebody that is an individualist.
The education system here in Scotland, and I've argued many times before, unfortunately because of the way collectivism is, the education system is in the hands of government. The government has the power to control and manipulate what information it feeds to people, and unfortunately people buy into all of that information. People don't question things. My other friend, Keyrin, that bought into, the stuff at first, but once he started getting told certain things about libertarianism, he was introduced to a different way of thinking of things. Like I say, once government holds a monopoly over education, it can have so much power over people and influence. From your experience, Keyrin, I know you had came across, obviously, Cameron, who came across my channel and passed on to yourself. What was your perception on everything?
My perception firstly was, I was brought up in Northern Ireland. I was brought up in Belfast. We were always brought up to believe, IRA, evil, UVF, good, but both are as bad as each other. Both are as socialist as each other. I come over here for a better life in Scotland, and I was part of the education system within Scotland. The education system was an indoctrination. I actually have fond memories of being in my modern studies class, being told that capitalism and libertarianism evil and socialism the best, I was taught about China. I was taught about the melting pot in China. Sorry, not the melting pot, the rice bowl in China. And the rice bowl was all about how China accommodated to all of their citizens and how all of the citizens were in a much better place back in the when there was a complete dictatorship. I was told about Scottish politics, the Scottish Parliament, for example. I was told that the Scottish Parliament was offering the Scottish people a much better way of life than those of the UK as a majority, and I believed it. And then obviously I met Cameron, I met yourself obviously. My eyes were very open going into it. The way in which it was portrayed in schools and the way in which it's portrayed in overall society is much different to the way in which it was portrayed in education.
Much like Cameron, I'm very grateful that my channel had reached out to people like my friend Keyrin. It's actually how I actually became friends with both of them. Was thanks to my channel, otherwise I wouldn't have actually came across them. There's so many of you guys out there like yourself who have passed so many great comments, and I'm very grateful towards that. Like Keyrin's saying, with regards to the whole issue on the change of things, how he came across libertarianism, it's a great thing to see. And I think it's something that I feel more people should hear about.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I was brought up to believe that one socialist group was better than the other in regards to Northern Ireland. I was brought up to believe that the UVF was out to protect us and out to protect our interests, and led to believe that the Catholics and the IRA were the evil ones. There's no evil and there's no right in regards to those two groups. They're both socialistic in the way in which they operate. I come back over to Scotland and I was educated within the education system here, and I was led to believe that Scottish politics was for the better, and that the SNP were going to give us a free independent country within the land, which is not the case. I'm part of the Scottish Libertarian Party now. Within our mandate it is an independent country. We want an independent country within Scotland. We don't want an independent country where it's led by socialistic values. However, state education, state run anything, to be honest, is a no-no. And the reason why it's a no-no is because it doesn't serve for the greater purpose for the people within this country. I mean, you've got to look at nationalisation of the police, for example. We experienced ourselves last weekend.
It's in the hands of the state.
Absolutely. We experienced last weekend the ugliness of a state police. They were given orders by the Justice Minister at the time to break up the crowds in any way in which they thought was best for the country. And it's not up to the government to believe in anything which is best for its people. It's up to the people themselves to believe what's best for them. And that's exactly what the SLP are standing for. And the SLP are all for privatisation. We're all for making sure that the healthcare plans, for example, are in the people's hands. I mean, imagine having a healthcare system where the government is deciding on what is best for your health. It's you that should decide what is best for your health, not the nationalisation of the government. And that's what we firmly believe in any case. The government should only sit as a purpose to defend people's rights at the moment by the Scottish government, as proven by Nicola Sturgeon and her mob. And that is the absolute definition of what it is at the moment. It's a mob dictating to us what our rights and what our rights are not, and that should not be the case. It should be up to the people of what their rights are. It should be up to us to defend our rights, and it should be up to the government to make sure that our rights are not imposed. And with the lockdowns, with the mass gathering last weekend in regards to the Rangers celebrations, in regards to state education, in regards to anything, it's not up to the government to dictate what we should and what we should not be doing. It's up to the people. And that's what the SLP are all about.
What he just stated there is absolutely spot on, especially with regards to healthcare. Look, the bottom line is, folk, there's a lot of assumptions that go around. You can check out both my videos on it, especially to do with the main American healthcare market and the direct primary care. And what you will find is that the reason for why American main healthcare market got out of control with regards to costs was to do with the American Medical Association monopoly of 1904, the third-party payer system, the overregulation of the private sector, and in relation to do with the subsidies, because that was exactly the reason for why, you know, state education and American education costs got out of control. It's the same thing with healthcare. With Obamacare, you know, they introduced healthcare insurance for absolutely everything, for unnecessary things. And what the direct primary care system did, which is the more free market model, was it removed 80% of that unnecessary healthcare insurance, and it basically simplified the market and greatly reduced the costs on the consumer. That's what the free market does. People have been led into an illusion of what governments essentially caused, and people think that that's the fault of capitalism simply because there's the presence of the private sector. My friend here has just rightly stated regarding the issue of things like the NHS, for example. Unfortunately, in this country, it really is a religious institution. I mean, you can say this yourself, Keyrin, can't you?
The thing with the NHS is there's no margins of profit, margins of losses, and these losses and these profits are indicators of what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. Because you have no profits and because you have no losses, you have absolutely no idea what's going right and what's going wrong within your institution. That's why private healthcare, as an example, is much better. You've got profits which you can project the good things in which you're doing for people, and you've got losses which you can project and which maybe isn't going so well. If you have losses, you're veering away from what you're doing already, because you're trying to minimise the losses in which you're making.
Basically, trying to minimise what you're doing wrong.
Exactly. And with profits, you're trying to maximise what you're doing right by the people.
Yeah.
By the people that you're serving as a company, and that's something that the NHS simply does not have the capacity to do, because they don't know what they're losing out on and what they're maximising in regards to profits and what they're doing right. Profits and losses should always be used as indicators. Always indicators. If you're doing something right, it's an indicator that you should continue doing that one thing that's satisfying the market.
If it's satisfying the demand, obviously if it's satisfying the demand, and I think that's a very important thing, and that's kind of what capitalism is. It's a successful business plan on the basis of consumer demand that obviously has demand for that business, and if that business has successful demand, it will in turn benefit the business also in terms of its profit from the consumers. I just want to make another wee comment in regards to obviously government funded education, because a lot of nations that have nationalised education, they prey on people that listen to the government narrative of what has been produced in our schools. Really what should happen is that there should be a freedom of independent education that is independent of government, where people can learn on the basis of what is actually true based on independent research and not based on what the government think you should know.
I mean, that's 100% spot on, because, I mean, like I say, you look at the Prussian school model that the United States of America had taken on. The United States used to have a 95% literacy rate when it used to have free market education. I mean, that should tell you something. Ever since the state education system, all it's done is politically indoctrinated people. My two friends can here agree upon the way that things have gone, even here with the state education system here in Scotland. Trust me, because they themselves know that from the teachers, or if you want to call them lecturers, they know themselves, and they've told me themselves from their own words what their teachers were like, you know, feeding out propaganda. I'm not obviously thinking myself, but they themselves have said themselves about my own channel. It's independent research that actually people will learn things. They won't learn from the state education system. Just listen to what you know Cameron has to say here on the state education system, and his example, how he came across my own channel.
Well, the examples that I've seen over the course of the number of years when I was in school personally is that the narrative of, you know, if you're anything sort of centre-right, if you're anything other than a socialist or a communist, then they will basically alienate you as a person. They will basically bully you into thinking that you're the bad guy. And that sort of narrative needs to change, because the fact of the matter is, people, whether you're on the right or the wrong, politically or economically, people should not be alienated. They should be given the freedom to choose what they should be. That's sort of the bully narrative amongst the left, is that they basically want to nationalise your education so that you can learn what the government want you to learn, and not based on what is actual fact. They want you to believe a narrative, and that is authoritarianism, and that is what nationalised education brings, and it needs to stop.
I mean, I can speak in support of that comment, in support of that statement. Myself, I remember modern studies very well. Modern studies was all about learning about America, or learning about China, learning about how the police operate in the country, learning about Scottish local politician ways, the way in which they operate in the Scottish Parliament, the way in which they operate in the UK Parliament. It was always focused on how the Scottish Parliament are working, not all about the UK Parliament. I mean, we learned about it, but we were always focusing on, at that time, the Scottish independence referendum. At that time, I was still in school with... Can I dox someone? Can I?
You're more than free to, mate.
Mrs. Boyle, you fucking cunt. I mean, and she acted like she had a boil in her arse 24/7. And she was always about an independent Scotland under the SNP would work. You know, state education, all those. We were always learning about how the government are protecting education, how the government are protecting finances overall. They're not protecting anything, you know. I mean, you've got to look at their history in education and how they're performing in education. Exam rates, for example, pass rates in exams are at an all-time low in Scotland. Scotland used to be one of the world leaders in regards to an education system.
It was.
It was.
It literally, see in the 17th century, like going back to the 17th century, in fact 18th century, going back to the period of the rise of the United States of America, Scotland was the world leader of medicine, and education. Being serious, Scotland was a country that used to believe in standing on its own 2 feet. The damage that was caused through welfare statism, social security, nationalisation, all of these things that created dependency upon the people that led to this very problem today. And you know, I couldn't agree more. Your view on the issue, because we're going to go on to the Scottish independence and how it should be.
Well, I think first and foremost, Scott, I mean, obviously I went to a government-funded school myself, and the fact of the matter is, obviously, I've heard certain political narratives, and some people are more indoctrinated by certain areas, whether it be from schools or whether it be from certain individuals outside of school. I was more sort of the mindset of looking to information that I could verify for myself, as opposed to just being spoon-fed information from those that sort of fed it out, which is what the sort of government-funded education, and not just government-funded education, media outlets, they sort of played on those that would seek information on the basis of what they were told, not on the basis of what they would actually learn independently. And so when I came across your channel, obviously I listened to yourself, and I saw obviously some of the contradictions, whether it be in regards to supporting a freer society. Like, a lot of these government-funded schools would talk about a freer society, but they would talk about socialism. But then when I came across your channel, I started to learn more about obviously what socialism had actually done in terms of regressing society. That sort of way of being taught and that way of thinking was obviously flawed and had major contradiction within itself.
I know you're a lot younger than myself, mate. I mean, I'm 37. You're probably 25. Was it 2002 I left school? I was about 18 years old at the time, but it was still been as bad as what it is. Obviously at the time I wouldn't have understood anything, because I never really took interest in politics. Didn't really, follow politics, and that's the issue. Because see, when a lot of folk don't take interest in politics, it's so
led.
There you go.
They get easily led. And to be fair, Scott, I'm just giving it a wee example here, because there was a moment when I was in my modern studies class, and even at the time, like, I was about maybe 17 or 18, even at the time I didn't really take full interest in politics, but they were talking about, is immigration form racist and stuff like that, but they would sort of, anyone that would answer differently, they would kind of look at it at a negative light. So I was kind of on this sort of mindset of, well, yes, it is racist because they won't allow in, people, and I always viewed that immigration was a right type of thing. That was the perception that they would sort of make you think. No, obviously, I don't
they
think
would
that.
push
I
the
don't.
perception on you,
Yeah, I don't think that now. Obviously.
Like what he explained there, and just what I explained before, government pushes a narrative through the state education system of one picture. It doesn't paint any other picture. When people begin to think independently and think for themselves, they begin to see a different picture. And that different picture is the fact it's not as simple as what's made out to be there.
Well, actually, I actually owe someone an apology. I actually owe someone an apology from school. There's a guy called Cameron Murray. Hate to dox you, by the way. He was all for United Kingdom Independence Party at the time. This was way back 2014 when UKIP was a big thing. Not so big now, obviously, due to in-party politics and all. He was all for independence from the EU, and he was all for the Union. Actually spoke out many times whilst in modern studies how he envisaged the country to be in the next 5-10 years, how he wanted the country to progress, that is, stay in the Union of the United Kingdom and also become independent from the European Union. Every time that he tried to stand up for what he believed, he was shot down instantly within class. That wasn't just by the students that were in the class at the time, that was actually by the teacher, whether that be by Shannon Reid, who was a teacher. It didn't matter what teacher we had at the time. He was always shot down about his political beliefs, which was completely different to the majority of the class. And that's what we're seeing in Scotland at the moment. We're seeing unionists who are perceived as a minority, and trust me, there's a lot more unionists than you think in Scotland that are just staying quiet because of this mob. And that is the word for them. They are nationalist mobs that jump on you and attack you for beliefs that you have. As part of the SLP, we do want an independent Scotland. That is no secret. That's within our mandate. I joined the SLP for two things. One thing is to protect our rights. The second thing was specifically to protect our freedom of speech. And I've been inspired by Marcus Meekin, better known as Count Dankula, and his story, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers will know about. He taught his pug to do a Nazi salute to piss off his girlfriend. As a joke, he was almost sent to jail for that. To be almost sent to jail for teaching your pug to do a Nazi salute is ludicrous. In any country, any state, any union, whatever, right? It's ludicrous. If I veer myself back to my school days when I was a generic lefty myself and I was following like a regular sheep, and I was criticising this lad, Cameron Murray, for his beliefs and his standpoints, I also would agree back then that he should have been sent to jail. Not now, obviously. My brain overall is taught to think for myself. I think that's a very fucking good thing. I think there's a lot of Scottish people that can take that as an example and they can actually put that into practice within this country. Even back then, I didn't believe that Scotland would be a better off independent. My views have slightly changed in a way in which if we do get an independent Scotland, we should have a libertarian Scotland. We should have a capitalist Scotland, not a socialistic Scotland. And my views have progressed in that way. That is what the education system does in this country. Having a state-led education is very, very dangerous, because a lot of people who are coming out of universities, a lot of people who are coming out of college are believing the absolute nonsense that's coming out from the SNP about how we should live as a society. And that's scary. It's really scary. Today, we've had to follow government regulations, not out of choice, but out of force. We had to walk through this pub. We actually had to walk through this pub with a mask on. And I think that's really, really dangerous. If the government was to tell you tomorrow, jump off a bridge, would you do it? Of course you wouldn't do it, because jumping off a bridge is detrimental to your well-being. Doing anything that the government asks you to do shouldn't be forceful. It should be a choice. And the fact that we even have to order from a table, we can't even go up to the bar or even drink inside the bar because of what she says, because of what we are told, is dangerous. It's very dangerous to our society, and that's something that the SLP are wanting to change big time, and that's something that I support. So I urge any, and I mean any young person that's watching this, to join us, to join the Scottish Libertarian Party, becoming a more, and I mean, when I say free, I mean completely free, can do what they want, within reason, so long as we're not impacting other people's rights. To have a government that is dedicated to protecting the rights of the people, that's the one thing I urge any person around my age. I'm a 22-year-old lad. I've grown over the years through following Scotty, through being friends with Cameron, thinking myself independently. And whether we are part of the Union as a United Kingdom, we may differ in that opinion. Whether we stay as a union, regardless, our rights, individual rights, whether that be speech, whether that be rights to go outside and smoke, whether that be rights to smoke inside. You didn't need a pandemic to tell you that you can't smoke inside a vicinity. That in itself is ridiculous. We should be given a right, we should be given a freedom to do whatever we like, so long as we're not impacting the other person's rights. And that is the message from the Scottish Libertarian Party, and that's what we can provide this country. So join us, join this revolution. A revolution in a good way, not a bad way. These speech rights are ridiculous. That hate bill that was put through by the SNP is really, in the long term, going to be detrimental to everyone. Everyone, whether you're a minority, whether you're not a minority, they are going to find something to incriminate you with. And that's the thing with a government, they love a grey area. They absolutely love a grey area, because that means that they can always incriminate someone regardless, because it's a grey area. Trying to combat that, join us in trying to get our liberties and our rights back. And trust me, if we're successful, Scotland will be a much better place.
Like he says, I mean, he's absolutely spot on. The bottom line is, I mean, they're always going to take advantage of you. That's why I seek to, argument for the sake of reducing the size and power of the state of the government. It's always going to abuse you in that sense. It's very, very sad, because a lot of people buy into the idea that government is their saviour and all the rest of this. Now, in regard to the Scottish independence, someone had asked me, obviously, well, how do you view an independent Scotland? What do you think a successful independent Scotland would be like? An independent Scotland should be in the direction of freeing up the market, because that's the only successful economy that you can have. Now, if you reduce the size of the economy to remove from the United Kingdom and go towards a Scotland on its own, where Scotland is only 5 million population, of course Scotland's not going to be as better off. When people use this myth, and I've seen this myth coming from many unionists, and I am a unionist. Many unionists have said Scotland cannot be a successful country independently. It actually can. The reason why Scotland can be an independent country and successful is because if Scotland was to take on capitalism is one thing and one thing only, and that is the free market economy. Nothing to do with this mixed economy. Nothing to do with this corporatism. The separation of the economy from government. If the Scottish people were to listen up, if the Scottish nationalists were to actually take note and actually listen to the arguments that the Scottish Libertarians, for example, were to argue, and learn for why the free market would turn Scotland into a prosperous nation, they would get their eyes open. You only need to look at the evidence of Hong Kong. Hong Kong was a tiny, small fishing village, size of nothing. It couldn't even trade through the borders of China. It had practically no natural resources, and yet Hong Kong thrived and prospered. It had nothing there for them, and yet despite having nothing there for them, despite the fact that the British government was extremely limited to what it could do in Hong Kong, what you saw was the exact opposite of what these socialists claimed would be. That was a Hong Kong that would prosper to become the richest city in the world. For an independent Scotland, what Scotland should have, and in my eyes, what Scotland should be, get rid of this fiat currency. Get rid of this paper currency, folk. Get rid of it. If Scotland separates, do not support it. Do not support a central banking system. Get rid of the central banking system. Replace that fiat monetary system, the paper currency, etc., and even money that's created digitally out of thin air. Get rid of all of that and move back towards a free market money. Free market money means money that's determined by the people of society, by the market, gold and silver. That's the first thing. But if you could do it over a gradual period of time, remove this current system today, remove this current monetary system and move towards a true monetary system and a free banking system, not a central banking system. A banking system where private banks are left to compete and serve for the customers. I know that some people might have questions on that, of course, but that's the most important thing that I think that Scotland should have. Free the private sector from what it currently is. Private sector is over-regulated by the state. Do not listen to people who tell you that deregulation caused the banking crisis. It's a myth. Allow private businesses to compete, allow private businesses to produce more, for there to be more competition. The free market is the solution, folk. Do not fall into the trap of believing that just because you see these giant corporations got in the positions that they got in because of special interest favours through all the socialist government interference. Only way that we're going to get rid of this corporatist system, this unjust, and it is, and Marxists are absolutely right for what they say on this corporatist system, it's unjust. But the only way that you're ever going to get rid of that is the capitalist system. Nicola Sturgeon arguing for setting up a central banking system, and then you then have to ask the question, well, they're going to have to set up their own treasury. That's going to cost a lot of money, isn't it? London is currently financing 100% of Scotland's medical research. You imagine how much all of that costs. The only rational people who are making an argument for Scotland's independence are the Scottish Libertarians.
The only libertarian thing you can do in this country right now is start up your own business. But even then, it's met with regulations by the government. It's not private at all because of the government regulations or the government taxes that you have to pay in the country. With the government itself, they have all of the different things in places for the most key points in the running of the country overall. The government-run police state, restrictions on speech, the hate speech bill that was passed through by the Scottish government last year. I mean, I could make a joke in my own house, right, and I could get arrested. Look at the technology that they're trying to use to implement that, such as the Alexas. They're actually using Alexas as a tool for people to call the police on. The police can then, in turn, after you've called them, listen into your household and listen into the speech that is used within your household. I don't know if you were aware of that, but that is what's happening at the moment.
I mean, Alexa, you'll know yourself, mate. I mean, the whole thing over what SNP were trying to introduce. Watch over what people are saying and everything in their own households. It's fucking straight out of Nazi Germany, man.
Absolutely.
You even look at examples of obviously Hamza Yusuf and Nicola Sturgeon. I mean, I don't know if the media are selected in this country, but you even look at the media questions towards these people, especially this side of the border at least. They don't get pressed enough. They don't get questioned enough because the left don't like criticism.
They're
If the left
true.
if the left get criticism, then basically that puts them in a bad light. So basically, they make their mistakes. They will be the authority. Any sort of mistakes that they make, they will not answer to, and they will do anything they can, whether it be nationalising the media, and that's what you kind of see with the SNP. STV. Sorry, but the SNP are the same with STV, where basically they do not press them enough with the questions in regards to their short givens, whether it be Govan Hill, whether it be Hamza Yusuf's authoritarian narrative when it comes to police and speech when they're on home, like you were talking about. STV do not like to press, like any sort of nationalised media outlet that is under the authoritarian regime of a national socialist or communistic regime.
The Scottish government, in Scotland at least, 'cause I can only comment on Scotland because I live in Scotland. I've never lived in England or Wales or anywhere like that. The SNP hold of all of the Trump cards. They'll hate the fact that I've involved Trump, the word Trump, in with SNP, right? They hold all of the Trump cards in every single key position within the whole of the country, whether that be state education, whether that be state-led police, whether that be state-led media such as the BBC Scotland, such as STV, as Cameron said. All of the different examples which I can name off on a list, I could keep going. All of these different key positions within the country are led by the state. Does that not ring alarm bells in your head? Really dangerous, because within the media they can give away, they can tell the media to say a certain thing. Within the police, they can tell the police to police a certain thing. Within the education, they can educate people to absolutely. Within the education system, they can teach people to think a certain way.
Look how they treated us Rangers supporters, right? Just a day before we were going to celebrate for going out to celebrate lifting the 55th title. It doesn't matter whether you support Celtic or no. If you're a Celtic supporter and you're in the same position, you'd want to go and celebrate, and I would support that, because at the end of the day, it's natural, right? As if by magic, SNP just happened to impose more restrictions, as if by magic, a day before Rangers were going to celebrate, as if it wasn't today with Rangers. For whatever reason being, I've got so much hatred towards capitalism because they've been indoctrinated into socialist pish. Let's be honest with you. they've been indoctrinated into all the socialist pish, and they somehow think socialism's going to save their issues. That's why we've got the issues that we've got.
And that's the thing, Scotty's absolutely right in what he says about Celtic. Last season, for example, Celtic fans went out and celebrated 9 in a row. Quite rightly so. If that was Rangers, I'd be out and with bells on. The government love a crisis, and the reason why they love a crisis is because they can control people.
I think the problem with a lot of people, and I don't want to obviously tar everyone with the one brush, but the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of people out there that are willing to sacrifice their own freedom just to listen to the government's narrative, to follow the government's narrative, because they are under the mindset that they believe that the government's point of view is gospel. Go with your own beliefs and do not be led down the garden path by government who are willing to sacrifice your freedom on the basis of you trusting them with your blind faith. Because at the end of the day, blind faith can be a very dangerous thing, especially if you're willing to put your blind faith and your trust into a government that are willing to take away your freedom.
You talk about the Industrial Revolution, the banking crisis, the Great Depression. There's so many things that the left will lie to you about, and so many folk have sadly bought into it because they don't even bother questioning what the left basically claim to you. And when it comes to Scottish independence, and independent in true meaning, because let's face it, what does independence mean, folk? Independence means that it's independence. It's not depending upon another entity for your existence. In other words, you're not depending upon the state, folk. It doesn't mean you're left there to just, die because of a free market. I voted no in 2014 because I felt it was the best position for Scotland at that time, and I felt that the majority of Scotland were against capitalism, and I felt that that's the reason for why I voted for what I did. For me, Scottish independence isn't about yes or no. I was actually, believe it or no, because I dared to argue with both the yes vote pages and the better together pages, I was banned from both of them.
And I'll probably sound like I'm repeating myself yet again, but the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, don't be led down the garden path, just think for yourself. And when it comes to obviously education and those that believe in obviously a free market, just think for yourself and don't listen to what you're fed. And obviously I know when it comes to obviously government funded education, and when it comes to obviously the media outlets that are telling you what to believe, the fact of the matter is, we believe in a society, whether you support Scottish independence, whether you support unionism, we believe in a society that is free, that the economy is not over-regulated by the government. We believe in a society where free speech is free speech and is not regulated by the government, and we believe in people's freedoms, and that's really ultimately what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the freedom of the economy, the freedom of people's speech to do what they want and to say what they want, you know, so that's basically it.
If we were to have a Scottish referendum now, and it was to be led by the SNP, what would I vote? An SLP party member? No. It's as simple as that. I would still vote no. We would have a socialistic party in charge of an independent Scotland. That would put us down the drain. In order to change my vote, there needs to be a change in opinion. There needs to be a change in the way in which we move forward. There needs to be a change in mentality. And unfortunately, I can't see that change in mentality because of the state-led education that's currently in place.
To folk who are questioning on their position and they're not entirely sure, what would you say to them on regards to, you know, what they should do? In my perspective, I support the British Union because of the fact that, sadly as it is, the majority of folk in this country seem to be very conditioned with the idea of needing socialism to some varying extent.
There's no black and white answer, Scott. That much is true. There's a lot of people that obviously do not trust the Tory government, and they do not trust the union on the basis of past history, obviously, but at the same time, a lot of them are turning towards the SNP as their only hope. Let's face it, you know, when it comes to breaking away from the union, or even just like supporting socialism, they turn to the SNP. But I would challenge them to look back on history in regards to socialism itself, whether it be Venezuela, whether it be Cuba in the past, you know. Obviously before the 1950s you saw Hong Kong, and I look at the communist states, obviously like China and Russia, and really you've got that's what's not being taught in state education enough, is the fact that those regimes have failed economically. They've failed the people. They have saw starvation. They have saw the failure of government to the people, and I would challenge them to question their faith in government. If you want something like that, obviously I'm more of a UKIP voter. I'm not an SLP voter, but obviously I would
Change that soon enough.
I would certainly give people the opportunity to say the SLP do support the free market, they do support libertarianism, they do support people who are given the choice. And I think that is the difference between a system that the government runs its own business and the economy runs its own business, compared to an authoritarian regime. They control the economy and the education system. I would vote against that, and the only way to vote against that is to vote for someone like the SLP. Again, I'll reiterate, I'm a UKIP voter personally, although I was kind of more forced to vote Conservatives recently just to try and get the SNP out. But no, the fact of the matter is, the only way to a free society and a society of critical thinking and prosperous is to, you know, vote for freedom of speech, deregulation of the economy, and deregulation of government-funded education. Always vote on the intention of independent research, on libertarianism, and for the freedom and the benefit. And I challenge anyone to read the manifestos of any parties that, you know, talk about claiming to fight for the people, but they, in the end, basically just want to look after themselves.
That also goes for education. If you're learning about politics, if you're even like myself when I was a young lad in modern studies class, question absolutely everything they tell you. They themselves are employed by the SQA, the Scottish Qualifications Association. Yeah. They themselves are trying to prepare you for examinations by the Scottish Qualification Association, and the SQA directly report to one party and one party only, the Scottish Nationalist Party.
I mean, that really hits the nail right in the head of what my friends have basically stated.
Think about your freedoms and keep an open mind. I think freedom is a powerful word. I mean, if you take the connotations and the denotations of that word, freedom, imperative to the views in which we hold, whether that be in the Scottish Libertarian Party, which I've signed up for, or with your own channel. It's all about freedom, having the freedom to make your own choices, having the freedom for the country to make its own choices. If anyone is looking at this video, or anyone is looking at your channel, keep an open mind and always consider their own freedom, and always remember the words that a government loves a crisis simply because they can then place restrictions over its people.
Scotland more certainly can be an independent country, more certainly can be a successful country, but it requires folk to have the open mind to learn and understand why capitalism is the solution. So I hope that's been educational enough for yourself. I hope you've enjoyed the content, and if you've got any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, share the video, and of course, thank you for watching, and of course, I shall talk to you later. Before I actually finish off, just one last words.
Yeah, if you agree with the points that are made from myself or from Cameron or from Scotty, I would absolutely recommend, if you live in Scotland, to sign up for the SLP, Scottish Libertarian Party. We're always free in regards to getting more members. I signed up a couple of months ago myself, based on years worth of research, based on years worth of thinking on my own, and I'm sure Scotty will be accommodative. I don't know if that's a word, accommodative. I don't know, but he will be much more free to leave a link in the description of the video in regards to how to sign up for the Scottish Libertarian Party. I have a mission of myself, a personal mission, to get more and more people who are of my age calibre, between the ages of 16 to 30, to sign up to the SLP and to try and create a much better society within Scotland in regards to the way in which they think, in regards to the way in which they want to shape the country. If that means that we go independent from the United Kingdom, in my opinion, and again we may differ, we may differ in opinions. In my opinion, if we are going in a much more libertarian approach, independently from the United Kingdom, then I would absolutely support that. But again, I have to have assurances that we're going from a socialistic government that we're currently under at the moment to go into more of a libertarian capitalist government. And that's what our aim is. Our aim is to get a more capitalist libertarian society within Scotland. So please, I beg you, if you believe the same way in which we do, sign up to the SLP. We're here for you all the way.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, guys, I would just encourage, I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, but the fact of the matter is, I would just encourage more people just to open their minds and just vote on the intention of people's freedom, and just vote for the good intention of not listening to what you're necessarily spoon-fed. Just vote for a society that cares about a government, well, obviously a society that is deregulated, and we encourage those to vote on the basis of those who care about free speech and a fair society. I just want to thank all you guys in terms of obviously watching this video, and stay tuned for more, obviously.
That's everything, folks. Obviously, thank you for watching. Be sure to like it, share the video, and of course, thank you for watching. Just remember, what is it? We are the people.
We are the people.
We are the people.
Hearts, hearts, glorious hearts.
He's an insider. Talk to you later. Cheers.
Cheers, lads.